Can we stop? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of October 25th. If you could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Clerk.
Members of the Town Council, the first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next items are submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item C1. This is the second reading for adoption for ordinance 2017-15. This is to designate, or rather, no parking areas on Congregational Street, Goulart Avenue, and Segal Street.
Motion to approve all the no parking areas specified in this adoption for the 2017-15 Chapter 16 with all the ordinances and laws attached to it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item D1. This is the petition of Eric Leibel, doing business as Witch Doctor Tattoo Studio, 11 Gooding Avenue. Request council consideration for a tattooing license. You have a late item recommendation provided by the town administrator and chief of police to approve.
Based on the recommendations, I make a motion to approve the tattooing license.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Do you happen to be Eric?
Yes, I am. Eric Liebel.
Hi, Eric. Welcome.
Good evening.
Hi.
You have a 20-second opportunity here for an advertisement, if you'd like.
This is my third time actually opening. I had to close because I got full custody of my son with autism, and he just really needed the time. And it's time to get back to it, back to business.
Excellent.
So I hope you guys will accept me again.
Best of luck.
Thank
you.
Any other?
On all accounts.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Well put. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Any
you. Have a
opposed?
great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the petition of Jerry Johnson, 828 Wood Street, requests council consideration for removal of an accessible parking space in the vicinity of her residence.
Motion to adopt this removable accessible parking space.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Excuse me 1 second, just got to play catch up. The next item is item F2. This is from my office regarding the removal of accessible parking spaces at 7 and 13 Segal Street. This is per the earlier discussions and the recently adopted ordinance as above.
I know there was much involvement with this, going over everything to make sure everything's going to be okay with Segal Street. If nobody's here to speak, I just make a motion that we approve the second reading for this removal of the spaces.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Excuse me. The next petition is from Joao Dias of 244 Wood Street. Request council consideration to add a accessible parking space in front of his residence. This is the first reading.
Motion, this constitutes the first reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And finally, item F4, this is the petition of Melissa Vierling of 62 Oliver Street, requests removal of an accessible parking space. This is the first reading.
Motion.
To approve the first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the public service appointment section. This is the membership list of the Bristol Christmas Festival Committee provided by the chairman, Tanya Kieran.
Motion that we accept and confirm the names for the Bristol Christmas Festival as submitted for 2017-2018. Thank you very much.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just a quick commercial while we're on that topic. Michael Burns is the spirit of Christmas, since we're talking about the Bristol Christmas Festival Committee and their hard work of their upcoming events. So I just wanted to quickly say that. So congratulations.
The next item is item G1B, and this is the Historic District Commission. There's a vacancy with term to expire in July 2018. You have the application of Sonny Furtado of 148 High Street, who has interest in becoming appointed to that position.
Motion, Mr. Clerk, to set up an interview with Mr. Furtado for his interest.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Yeah, there was also a late item, another person who also applied. I'm assuming that we'll have the interview of that person at the same time, too. It didn't make the agenda, but we can add it in.
Absolutely.
Where we expedite it, yeah.
Thank you.
The next is G1C, and that is the Economic Development Commission. This is continued from September 13th. You have the interest of Charles Cavalcanti, Patrick McCarthy, and Patricia McLaughlin, all seeking reappointment.
So this council had a special workshop in regards not just to this, a few things on October 11th to discuss at length the Economic Development Commission and then a few other things. So I would say it was all-encompassing economic development. There was a lot of discussion from this council, from Community Development Director Diane Williamson, of course the administrator, so and then actually from the EDC itself. And that conversation included what where is our current value there, where is the future value there, and where do we want to go from here. To remind everyone, we had an economic development coordinator, that was the term that we were using. We are now currently advertising for an economic development director, and the term difference, I think, well captures what we're looking for in this updated position, to be more of an outreach to our businesses, to be more of maybe communication, maybe the next level with our website, and a combination of all of those things. Did I capture that, Mr. Administrator, in the way that you advertised it? Okay. All right. So from that, I must say that I've spoken to a multitude, well, not a multitude, but three EDC members, business members themselves, and the three members that I spoke with felt that it was time to take a hiatus from, not economic development, from the commission itself. They felt that the product wasn't there right now, and the will was there, and the efforts were there, but the product wasn't there. I think that well captures it, because it's not a wish to not have economic development. In fact, this council was first to have an economic development director, or coordinator is what we were calling it. So the commitment is there. And again, it's not a reflection on a person or people. It's more of what's happening right now and what we're looking for. I myself would be absolutely open to, if this new person that we hire sees value in having the support staff there, I would be happy to reconsider that. If my memory is correct, one of the members brought up a great suggestion, which was a more representation from our business partners. So I'm talking about industrial manufacturing. Not that we don't have it, but a better representation. So what's my colleague's thoughts?
I'd like to just echo your sentiment. I did reach out to a few members on the EDC, and they also had agreed that it was tend to be a committee that the goalposts didn't really get moved at all, and no goals were really reached. And for that, they felt they could be better used on other commissions, boards and commissions. So long and the short of it, I also feel productivity is important, and where we're going as a direction. And I think the EDC coordinator is going to be able to steer that ship a little bit better than the commission has in the past, although they've done a fantastic job, and we I don't want to say that their time isn't valued. It's very much valued. But I think where we're going as a town, it's very, very fast-paced with a lot of information. With our technology changes, we need to make decisions and have results and talking about things, and we need to have better direction on that. So I agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Well, I believe the workshop that was held between the Economic Development Commission and this council was very productive, and the communication was a key factor on many levels of what was discussed going forward. And I think the value in respect of our town and everyone involved, whether it be from the commission, this council administration, or the Department of Community Development, there were many ideas brought forth and how to bring them all together for the future of the town, and the value. I think what was an important topic was the direction of the new position. I think it was agreed upon, all of us, that it should be more instrumental. We should expect more of a return from that person, of the impact that they're going to have in their role, and that role should be the pivotal person and the target person that communicates on behalf of the administration and this council and its residents and businesses. So that has to come to fruition, and it's in the process right now. As far as the Economic Development Commission, to have a break from that and to reassess between all of us and communicate, I agree. Back when we had a discussion with our members of the enterprise zone and a lot of other factors of when the EDC was in full force, I would be remiss not to say thank you. I mean, we had roundtables, workshops on behalf of the commission. We had ordinance changes on behalf of the commission, and we value their hard work. I think we just have to step back, like my colleagues are saying, to do this right going forward, and who's to say what would formulate later on. So, thank you.
Whoops, jeez, just broke my thing.
You're breaking the microphone.
Yeah, I'm just breaking the microphone.
I used to have that one.
Oh, did you? That's the reason.
I swear I didn't switch.
No, that's okay. I just had a quick question first. Steve, when do you expect to hire the new person?
The application period closed last week, so I would assume within the next week or two.
Did you get a lot of responses?
Yeah, it was over a dozen or two. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, I think one of the problems with the EDC, I think as we discussed at that workshop, it would be basically an advisory committee. And advisory to what right now? To do what? So I think that we could, take a break from it if that's the feeling of the majority on the council. I do think that what might be a model to use going forward may be a variety of more ad hoc, short-term committees to really look in and delve into a particular topic that the new director would want help with. I think that may be something. I think it's kind of hard to be changing the position a little bit, which I think the position is going in a way that some of us advocated in the beginning, and not to have that input as to how they can best use a group, and not to just have a group there for the sake of having it, because it gets frustrating to say, oh, I've got to have a meeting with this group because we're supposed to, or the group saying, well, we go to these meetings, but we don't do anything, or we don't feel that we're contributing a lot. So I think maybe if people could look at it and say, okay, maybe the marina, maybe this, maybe that, like there are specific projects that we'll be taking on that need that input, and it becomes short-term, and we can move on from there. That might just be one thought as I'm thinking about this right now. So.
Councilman.
Thank you. So I believe that we need a full-time, high-caliber, professional economic development director working underneath the town administrator. I think the efforts to have a part-time coordinator or maybe a part-time director is a step in the right direction. But I think the type of opportunities that are within the town need to be looked at, analyzed, and strategized by an individual underneath the administrator at his direction to bring to realization these economic development opportunities. And I think that the commission isn't, on a volunteer basis, can provide the horsepower needed to address some of these issues. For example, some of the economic development things that are being pushed forward now without a coordinator or director demonstrating the need for one is Gertz Composites on Ballou Boulevard, working hard with the administrator and community development to figure out a way to get a high volume gas line in so that they could get better infrastructure for their facility so that they could remain competitive and stay within Bristol. So that's economic development. That's the way the town can respond. Does it make sense for the commission to be involved with that? Meetings are during the day, once a month. I think the town and the staff can be most nimble to solve those problems. Fulcrum Speedworks, six employees now, has $1.5 million contract to export small boats to Australia. This is a contract that will enable him to double his workforce to 12. He's having some problems with exporting, having a certified product, and I think that this is an issue that, again, the town can, I think, help with to aid in these businesses growing. And with a director of economic development, I think you could have an individual on staff to dust off the cover of the golf course study and look at and say, does it make sense to look at available space within town and make it available for commercial development? Maybe there's other ways we can fill spaces, incubate businesses. There are some vacant buildings, great buildings. Hall Spars was recently acquired, still sits vacant. Maybe there's a way the town can provide some tax relief that can be passed on to small businesses that occupy the space to incubate them, to allow them some rent relief over a small period of time so that the landlord doesn't carry the burden. The town can share some of that. So I think these are issues that are best dealt with at a staff level. But then when community input is needed, for example, navigating some of the opportunities at Bristol's Industrial Park off of Wood Street, maybe that's the opportunity to reconstitute a commission, task force, ad hoc committee to get public input on what can be done. So I do believe that there's a role, of course, for our citizens to be involved in economic development, but I think it needs to be guided by a director of economic development in a way which is most productive in providing the best results. So I think by step, first hiring a professional, high-caliber person, working with them to coordinate what is needed to support their efforts is a way that we should maybe think about proceeding.
Okay. So what I hear from my colleagues is this agenda item was to appoint. So I would say first, thank you for the efforts of the Economic Development Commission, and particularly the members who took time out of their time. We say this all the time for volunteer. Thank you for taking time out of your day, time out of your evening to make Bristol a better place, a more economically viable place. I would say I'm going to ask the solicitor for some assistance on this in our next meeting, that what steps would we need to take at our next meeting, because obviously this agenda item did not allow for action like that.
Sure. The ordinance on the Economic Development Commission is permissive. It basically says the council may establish if it so desires. So I think all you need to do for the next meeting is have an agenda item with regard to the status of the Economic Development Commission. You can decide then whether or not you just want to keep the ordinance in place but not have it active at this point, or you could actually amend the Code of Ordinances and eliminate it. Probably keep it in place and just decide to hold it.
That would certainly be my preference. Sure. I don't want to eliminate possibilities.
So do we take action on C and D at this time?
I would also not take action on C and D if
Okay.
you're not going to fill the positions.
So what's the assistance in regards to a particular motion on these agenda items?
C, D, and E.
C, D,
You
and
just
E.
received it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion to receive and file and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the first item under old business. This is the petition of Steve Scuba, 32 Ridge Road. regarding a proposed disabled veterans tax reform. This was continued from October 4th. You have some information provided by the tax assessor collector regarding the proposal of Mr. Segal.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Of course.
I gave everyone, excuse me, a packet with what my findings came out to be, and it was just something that we roughly threw out, Lou Giusti and I, in order to have a guideline to start with. And we did this because if you look at the old application, they still have a block to check off for World War I veterans. I don't think we have any of those in Bristol. And the last time I think it was revised was 1984. To bring it more in line with what is going on today around the country, I put together some stuff from several different states, California, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, and Maine. I'm sorry, New Hampshire, where in some cases, veterans with 100% disability pay absolutely no taxes in their town. They don't pay registration fees on their car. They don't pay any income tax on state income tax. They don't pay any license fees. That is the extreme. This that I propose is about in the middle. What it does is it bumps up the what the veterans receive now, which is $250 to $300, and it tiers disabled veterans because a guy, you could be 0% and you're still considered a disabled veteran. But
Steve, would you stop and explain that to everyone? I
yeah,
think
it doesn't
we
make any
understand-
sense.
But since we want to get this out to the public, so could you make that point again about 0%?
Okay, you could be rated at 0%, which means that the VA recognizes you have a disability, but they don't think it's enough where they're going to compensate you for it. For example, the main one would be hearing loss. You could be almost stone deaf and you're rated at 0%. I mean, to be honest with you, I read lips better than I hear with my hearing aids because they just give me headaches. And I understand about 50% of what people are saying. But I'm rated at 0% for hearing loss. That's the norm. So that, that'll never change.
Thank you.
They'll just give you better hearing aids. So what I proposed was that on a tiered system, you would get $350 if you were a veteran. And if you had a disability level, depending on what it was, you would get $100 per 10%. And I gave everyone a sheet that was broken down from the tax assessor. Now, if you look at it, for example, the very top line, the guy that was in the Navy from 44 to 46 was rated at 60%. He right now pays $6,478.12 for taxes. He would basically get $850 knocked off his taxes. And so on and so on. But then if you look further down, there's a couple of blocks there. There's a guy that was in the Navy from 68 to 71, rated at 100%. Right now, he only pays $429.85. That's because he has no personal property except maybe a vehicle that's a clunker. So the town gets to keep $820.15. So when you look at the overall picture, that's what the numbers were down the bottom. What would actually be the taxes paid by the veterans would be $26,530.86. What the town would get to keep for not having to give them that extra compensation would be the $4,322.91. So it's basically the town would lose in taxes around $22,000, which is, I think I worked it out, it was 0.04% of the entire budget. And I think that's something that we could sit down at a workshop and go over and just come up with something better. These were guidelines. It's like I said, I picked from all over the country. And this is basically what I came up with. But the way it is now, and I've said it at a town council meeting before, the 19 you see at the bottom, out of the list of the people that returned the sheets we sent out, 19 of the veterans on this sheet don't get enough of a tax break to cover their sewer tax. And I think that's just, it's wrong. I don't know how else to say it. But it's your prerogative to do as you wish. This was meant as a guideline, and I would hope that we could sit down and go over it. Yes.
I just had a couple. First of all, I'm glad that you brought this forward, and I think I agree with you that what we have currently is embarrassing, especially for a town that prides itself on, the work with our veterans organizations, with our patriotism and so forth. So I think as you explained it, I think I kind of understood where you were going with this, but I think as you explained it, I actually like your plan on the percentage.
Thank you.
And I think it makes a lot of sense to move forward with this. The only thing that I saw, and you probably saw, Steve, was in the memo from our tax assessor, and the question of whether or not this is something that can go into effect like next July 1st, and that we could discuss this at the budget time.
Right.
Finalize it.
The reason Lou and I brought this now was because there's no budget discussions going on.
Right.
So you can look at this without having to worry about what you're going to give whatever organization and how would this fit in. But I think that the town could have absorbed $22,000, and I'll bet if we have a sit-down talk, I can come up with about 4 different ways you could make more than the $22,000.
Yeah. I
accommodate this.
I think my only point was in relation to, this isn't anything you were thinking that would go into effect for the remainder of this year, right? So this would be for the next, for us to think about, have a plan, so that when we go to do the budget, this is laid out pretty much as how we want it.
Right.
And is accounted for. Yeah, I think it's been a long time, if the 1984 date is correct, even if it was 1994. It's still been a long time that this has been looked at. And
but see, what some of the people don't understand about these percentages is that a guy could be rated at 100%. Come in, turn in the paper saying, yeah, okay, the VA recognized me at 100%. But in a year, he's dropped down to 50. That's a common thing. If you have prostate cancer and your prostate's removed, then you don't have cancer. So we're going to drop you down. And this happens all the time. Now, in the thing that I do on the third Monday of the month for the last 5 years, I had a gentleman come in, and he was dropped to 10% from 30. And I said, before he ever said anything, I said, I know exactly why you were dropped. You never showed up for your exam, for them to check out to see if you still had the same disability. So he reapplied, and now he's up to 50 because his hand is so bad that he can't even grab a pencil.
so does it change? And so every year the veteran would have to come in with their amount, or is it something that once they're out of the military and they're classified with a disability, that would be it? Like, for example, if you're 100% disabled, according to the VA,
right,
you would potentially be able to work in another job? Is that right? Or no?
If you're rated 100% permanent and total, yes. If you're at 80%, you get paid at the 100% level, but you cannot work. And that what they can do is request that you come in for an exam. And if, for some reason, you got better, they could drop your percentage.
So if it was a new vet, for example, like someone who is relatively, just coming back with some serious injuries because of therapy and so forth, their percentage could change.
Sure. See, one of the I think Massachusetts requires a tax abatement form every year. I think it's kind of a little ridiculous. Every 2 years would probably work, and that form you can either get it at the VA regional office, or if any veteran that signs up on e-benefits, you can print out any form you need right from the VA office down in Washington, and that takes about 30 seconds.
But everybody would get at least the $350.
Right.
That's served in the military.
Right, and that number, total veterans in Bristol, according to the state of Rhode Island, was about 2,100.
Right.
What we put out, I think she had said there were 125 disabled veterans. Mm-hmm. And I think we got back something like 75 or 80. Because some veterans just don't want to even participate in that, or they don't even know that they're entitled to a veteran's discount.
But the spouses are able to continue with that, correct?
Right, and that was one thing I was going to bring up. What I want to do now that I'm, well, technically totally retired.
Is that ever really the case when people are busy?
Yeah, this is my third time, so I can't get it right. But when I do that third Monday of the month, I want to see if I can do it at the senior center, because I'm sure the guys that are there that are Korean War and World War II are not going to come and visit me at night. So this way, if I can meet with the director and I can do it, I'll start one day a month, be there for 5 hours, have coffee, whatever, and, do a meet and greet and say, bring me your paperwork. Because if a disabled veteran passes away, 99% of the time I would bet the widow has no idea that they have to call the VA, like yesterday, to cancel what the guy was getting for his benefits. And after 3 or 4 months, they send her a nice letter that says, thank you very much for your husband's service, but you owe us $2,840 in benefits, because that's what we put in your account. And they don't know that stuff.
Wow.
So that's why I just, I figured I'd offer that.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, certainly, go ahead. No, go ahead, Vice.
The disability percentage,
Yes.
that changes on an annual basis, or? is
Not
that-
necessarily. It could be the same. A veteran has to apply for a disability based on a service-connected injury. They evaluate it, and they come up with a percentage.
Yep.
They could come back and say, hey, I just remembered I fell off the back of a deuce and a half and landed on my head. I think I have traumatic brain injury because I have severe headaches. Now, they analyze that and they say, yep, you're right. But twice you fell off the truck, so more than likely you do have, traumatic brain injury. We're going to give you 50% for that. Now, it's not a combined total of let's say, 80. It's an aggregate thing, and it's out of control. Technically, you could be 230% worth of disabilities, and they pay you for 100.
So does the $22,000 that you're talking about here, will that fluctuate at all, or is that
Actually,
more, was that stagnant for?
It's
for the
going to
budget
fluctuate,
hearings?
but I would bet it's down because we probably lost 10 to 12 veterans over the last year.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
And, that's, we're getting to the point where we have less and less veterans. I hate to say it could come to the point where you're never going to see any veteran in here. But that's,
Thank you for bringing this up, and especially now, because as many workshops as we need, I say we do this. It's a perfect timing.
Sure.
And thank you for being such a strong advocate, even throughout the whole state, for the veterans. As far as, it was a good question, deliberating the ratio, and I look at it as, if you want to talk about aggregate and ratios, we've been saving for 33 years on the backs of our disabled veterans. So if you want to go back in time of, if we were to bring up the realistic number on times when Mr. Scuba said that the sewer rate keeps increasing, where all veterans are on fixed incomes and their service for our town, but we're talking about disabled, and it's good that you're conveying to the public the numbers and what is needed. So going forward, I look forward to, number one, the legwork you did, you and Mr. Giusti, with these numbers, and as I stated to you before, that wherever the final thing is, it's not, if we're going to put it in the budget, I'm just speaking on my behalf.
Exactly.
It's how we
Yep.
put it in the budget,
Yeah.
because it's well deserved. It's time overdue and much needed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Scuba, I just wanted to say I like your plan, and I fully support it. So
Thank
thanks
you.
for putting it
It's-
together.
I kind of scribbled this out while I was going to school in Baltimore, but
Sometimes that's the best plan.
Lou and I kind of
So
finalized it.
Steve, the next step is we will set up a workshop.
Okay.
We're going to refer this off to the solicitor. And the reason why is that our current ordinance are a little beige in regards to the definitions. That's a nice way to put it.
Okay.
But I do wholeheartedly agree with my colleagues that we support moving forward with this, reviewing this, and making improvements on this.
Well, the thing is I speak VA, and most people don't even understand what that is. And my wife and I went somewhere, and I said, you're not going to have a clue as what anybody's talking about. And she didn't. because we use nothing but acronyms and, it's out of control. But I know the way the disabled veterans are paid. I know in some cases they're getting a raw deal. I even submitted something to the state to try to change something for the disabled veterans plates, because you can be 100% and not be allowed to get the plate, but you could be an amputee and only be rated at 30% and get the plate. And it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So that tells me it wasn't written by a veteran.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Not directly related to this, but kind of. Just at a quick glance, I only see two people in the 2000s. Mostly everybody looks like, primarily are a couple in the 90s, mostly looks like Vietnam veterans and prior. So this would encompass all veterans, even if they're in the National Guard serving on deployments?
No, not until they come back and produce a DD-214.
Right, but they would be able to be there. So in other words, anybody coming from Iraq or Afghanistan with some of the serious injuries people are coming back with, they would still be classified in here somewhere.
Right.
So basically, what this list is either they don't know about it or we don't have anyone who's disabled from current war.
Right.
Okay, but they would all be included. They
In
don't
most
get the same-
cases, to be honest with you, they don't know about it.
Okay.
There's no transitioning anything for them when they come back.
I mean, I find that just surprising, that's
And they're
all,
lost.
because, you see so much of, like, what people have come back with, and, and so many people in Rhode Island has had such large deployments.
Yeah.
And even some of people from, for Bristol, I was just surprised to see, I don't see anyone on the list, basically.
No.
So, I just wanted to make sure they were included in this, though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody, and we'd have to advertise this anyway, to say, look.
So, Steve, we have the fortunate ability to speak for the people of Bristol. So on behalf of the people of Bristol, we say thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to refer this to the solicitor and
To a workshop.
but first to the solicitor and then ultimately to a workshop.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from the Director of Community Development. This is item I-1 regarding planning board recommendations for the acceptance of improvements for Stonebrook Subdivision.
Diane, would you give us the executive summary on this one?
Sure. So this is a subdivision on the south side of Woodlawn. The developer was before the planning board at the last meeting, and they released all the guarantees. They found that all the improvements were done to their satisfaction. So the planning board recommended that you accept the street for maintenance, which means that it can now be publicly maintained with snow plowing and garbage removal and all of that.
Which is why it's in front of us right
Yes, it has to be done officially by the council.
now. Is there any reason why we shouldn't? Never. No.
seem like it.
Okay, and Diane answered that one. What's this council's pleasure?
It's a town road, right?
Absolutely.
It will be once you accept it.
It was always intended, it was always intended to be a town road, right? Just to make sure that all their...
Thank you. It was intended to be a town road, and this is just in accordance with the law. You have to officially accept it to be under the town's maintenance.
So you basically believe that the company, the construction company, did all the work, that it's like the road is in good shape and everything, and we don't need the bond anymore because everything's done correctly, is that right?
Correct.
That was my concern, because
Correct.
this was their recommendation from October 12th. I don't have it in my consent agenda, and I wasn't there at that meeting, but the water runoff, the sewers, everything
Yes.
that's attached
Yes.
to a new road from a developer, we are very adamant that is done correctly, so there's no aftermath that we will have to contend with by the same
Drainage
motion we're
problems.
trying to approve.
Exactly.
What's this council's pleasure?
Motion to approve the acceptance of improvements for Stonebrook Subdivision.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item I-2. This is from the council chairman regarding the solar project status update. You have a late item memorandum from the Director of Community Development regarding same.
Diane, I'll start this one, and if you could just add on, because I know that you added something at the end here. Councilman Stewart and I were speaking recently and said that it was about time that we had an update for the public about what's going on with this solar project. To remind everyone, this is a multi-pronged, I'm going to say that in the next one too, multi-pronged approach including rooftop units and landfill. And then there's actually a third portion which is virtual, which just goes down a completely crazy road. But long story short, we're making wonderful progress. The next steps will be some negotiating. Ultimately, this council needs to sign off on what will be signed up on. The solicitor is working with the same consultant in South Kingston, and the experience has been an extremely positive one. That was one of the reasons why we went with this person. So it is moving forward wonderfully. If we get to a positive end, there will, I'm sorry, I missed something. We're partnering with Barrington on this. We split the cost of the consultant, and when we're ready to get to the end here, we'll decide whether or not, this council will decide along with Barrington Council whether or not we should continue to partner or go our separate ways depending on what's best for both communities. And that means that they have rooftop units that they're looking at, and obviously we have the landfill that we're considering. So the benefits to the community, if you care about the planet, well, there's an obvious benefit because of green and less CO2 out there. If you care about dollars, that's another green. It's an amazing return with zero cost besides what we've already spent with the consultant. So, I mean, it's just wonderfully impressive. Diane, you wanted to take the second part about solar RI?
Sure. I'm happy to say that we got selected to be a solarized community again. We did a really successful program that ended last August, and they just came out with the next round, which you're in. Richard and I attended the interviews with the vendors yesterday. We have selected our vendor, and the actual official kickoff is tomorrow. And then we will be into a marketing campaign to try to get folks to sign up for potentially having solar on their buildings that can be residential or commercial. And the goal is to get a lot of interest and a lot of sign-ons, and the more energy that we generate with the solar installations, the lower the price goes. So it's a real incentive to bring a lot of people on board for the best price for the solar installations. So it's a really good program.
Do you think that the prices will be any lower than they were the first round, or?
That's a good question. I did not compare them to the first round pricing, but I know that they're trying to make them, competitive so that people will take advantage of it. So.
There's an interesting thing happening right now that one of the reasons why we haven't been able to take kind of a big next step with the solar is that there's a question about the tariffs on solar panels that were made or are made out of the country. The president is considering increasing the tariffs, so therefore increasing the cost of those panels. And that could change greatly what the outcome is with our solar project and many other solar projects. I'm not going to stop it, but it will change its return on investment, and I believe that will also weigh in on Solarized too, right?
So just leading into that question, what are we looking at timeline-wise as far as start to finish, do you think? Another year, or at least, or estimate?
I don't know that I can give you a definite. I'd say at least a year. I think when we first met with OER, they said it was a 2-year project.
Yeah,
and I don't know if we're quite into it, maybe 9 months or so. So I would say maybe another year would be a good target time frame. Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Of actual producing electricity.
Yeah.
Well, are they on, everyone who signed up last time around, are they on people's homes yet? They're not?
I thought he was asking about the
I was asking about
the landfill.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was
Yeah.
thinking about the solarized.
So
Okay.
yes.
We talked about two.
Yeah.
We were still on
Okay.
the timeline.
Yeah, so for the solarized program, yes, they have all been installed.
They have been, okay.
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
would you be able to, at our next meeting, convey, obviously because the kickoff is tomorrow, convey the benefits to the public?
Sure.
Bristolians, and say, this is
Absolutely.
why you should consider it, and
Absolutely.
this is what happens when more people sign on.
Okay.
If
Sure.
you could.
I'd be happy to.
That'd be great.
Well, certainly to the first topic, Vice Chair, last conversation Diana and I had, and she'll remember, is my first question is, where do we stand with the timeline, especially with the vendors? But a component that's very important is the experience for this project. Bristol is in a position with the greatest asset of our landfill, like many other communities that are going down this way, such as South Kingston and surrounding areas. You need someone with the best experience with that type of, asset such as a landfill and what goes on there. But definitely the communication, again, along with those timelines with everybody involved, is crucial because, you don't want to rush it, but you do want to rush it because you want to get this done. But you want to do it right. So to your point, that was my concern also. But as the chair said, that just had a meeting this week with all the people involved, so we are on the right track. As far as solarized Rhode Island, I'm very happy that it's coming back to our community. I think more people will get more involved after last year. I'm very happy to hear in conversation with our last ambassador of the marketing was Melinda Howard. And Melinda is just unbelievable throughout the state with every city and town with solarized. And she will be returning to Bristol advocating on behalf of Solarize once more, so I'm very happy to hear that she'll be joining us once again. Yeah, she
desperate to reach you the other day. I think she was calling all of us, so we all.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry.
Like I said, she is a great advocate. Yes, she's very tenacious, and that's a good thing with projects like this because that's how they keep moving and get going and convey it to the public of how important it is. So, thank you.
So we just need to receive and file on this unless there's any other dialogue?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item I3, also from the chairman regarding the RFP for regional school district analysis.
So we had a workshop that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that included EDC conversation. It also included very high level about an RFP that's in front of us this evening. And I say that because this is actually in front of us this evening. This RFP came to us tonight. No one has had a clear moment to actually read it. But the gist of it is this. It is a proposal to go out to do a analysis, and I said I would say three-prong, a three-prong approach to an analysis of our regional school system, and more specifically how we pay for it. And the analysis would look at the three options that are on the table. Option one is stay together. Option two is to deregionalize. Option three was a property tax-based taxing authority by the school system. Those are the three things that we need to look at. There are the president and the vice president from Warren here. Both councils met going back about a month and a half or so, and we spoke about the taxing authority. We talked about property tax base more than the taxing authority, I should say. Subsequently, the president and the vice president, chair and vice chair from both communities met and spoke about going out for an RFP. Just I want to back up a moment and say the school committee had voted recently to put together a task force. The belief from, and I don't want to speak for the Warren Town Council, but I can certainly tell you that I spoke with the chair, president and vice president. The belief of both, and I believe this council too, is that the approach that we need to take on this is unified. In fact, John Simmons is from RIPAC, had stressed that and continues to stress that, and I'm going to ask the solicitor to kind of weigh in on a few things because, first, nice job on all of this. We're looking at 20 pages or so of detailed requests for information. The goal here is to be balanced. The goal here is that if we can get this information, we need facts. We don't need opinions. We need facts. Once we get those facts, we can potentially exclude two. One, I have no idea. Once that information comes back, maybe we finally take off the table something that's been on there a long time. It doesn't matter what your personal want is. It comes down to we need all of the information so we can be informed about what the next step is. Once we have this information, we will need a task force. We will need to engage a lot more, but the first step is to get that information. I bring up Warren because there was initial dialogue with the four, but it comes from both councils. No decision was made that to split the cost of this. We don't know what the cost is yet. That's the whole idea. We go out for an RFP. But this is not the first step. This is step 75 of where we are at the moment. There's been a lot of work to get to this point, a lot of information, a lot of conversation. This council is most concerned, and I can speak for Warren on this one. Warren is also most concerned that we have a quality school, not only today and tomorrow, but 20 and 30 years. And these decisions that are being looked at right now have far-reaching consequences. My children are in the school system. I have one in first grade and one in fifth. So if I am directly affected by this, but I'm one of everybody here, because either you have a child, or you know of a child, or you were a child and you went through that system. We all know how valuable this is. It's not just about the dollars. It's about the quality of the school. It's also about a relationship that has been strained, but this might be the first step to a better place. So I'd like to open up to my colleagues, but just to remind everybody again, this was not to take an RFP next step. The next step here is we have to review this. We need to forward this to Warren so they can review it, because they haven't had an opportunity, either way, to talk about do we want to work together on this? Does this make sense? Is there a tweak that needs to happen? We all need to speak about it. So this is not to put the RFP out tomorrow, but we need to move forward with this. So let me open up to my colleagues.
Well, I'll just say that, I guess I'll start. I'm glad that we're not going to necessarily take action, but we have a chance to read it because we just got it tonight.
Correct.
But I think it's really, really important to the people of Bristol in particular, because that's who I represent, that we move forward looking at every possibility and what we need to do. And so I think that the three-prong approach, I think, is imperative. And maybe along the way, there'll be a fourth or fifth option that may emerge. Who knows?
Absolutely. Good point.
But I do want to make it, I think that every one of these, at least these three, have to be considered as seriously as the next. I think for people who have, there's some concept out there, at least at a school committee meeting, that we haven't really been doing much since the lawsuit was, since we got the ruling. And that we've been actually doing, as you said, Mr. Chairman, a great deal. We've had many, many conversations on what we should do, how we should proceed, and various options. And as you mentioned, had RIPEC come in to a meeting to brainstorm with them in a public meeting. So I think we've been doing a lot, and we need to just put something down into action now and come up with what really costs are, because we don't really know. As you said, some things would be very doable, and it'll have to go to the public vote eventually anyway. But
correct.
If one of them is going to cost $20 million, it's not going to even be feasible to put that out there. So I think we need to move forward as soon as we can. I think it's going to take a lot of time to get this done right. I'm hoping and assuming that there will be a consortium of collaborative of groups that come together to do the proposals with each of the people who may submit, because they all have different expertise in different areas. And on our end, it is about the education, but we have a high-quality educational school system now, and we are about 2/3 of that district. So I have total faith that will continue under any of these scenarios. And but each one of the years that ticks by is just additional money that we're spending and not putting it towards any one of these investments. So I think that we need to just move forward. And I know our next meeting is just in a couple of weeks, so that would be a good time frame.
So I know everyone has a lot of opinions on this. I think this is a step that is needed just to do due diligence and get the answers at the end of the day going forward with this topic. Not to do so, I think, would be very irresponsible. That doesn't mean we're going to do one or the other. But at the end of the day going forward, it is going to be one. And I just want to convey to the public the concerns when they start hearing the dialogue, such as tonight. I know they're concerned about losing, certain things, or maybe the quality of education. This is just a step of responsible action on behalf of this council, and I want to thank the president and vice president of the Warrentown Council, because one of the aspects is, if it stays the same and we can make a better approach through enabling legislation, we need to work as a community to keep a regionalized school system. So just as I said that, in the meantime, we as a council, this is going to take time. This isn't going to happen overnight. This is going to take at least a couple years. I mean, maybe it might go sooner, but I'm just being realistic. At the end of the day, it might be a 2-year thing. And many of my colleagues have stated that in the meantime, we as Bristol, in our council capacity on behalf of the residents, have to, address the budgetary restraints that are attached with this in the meantime. So that's the juggling act we have. So I just want to, convey to the public that, this isn't disingenuous, or we don't take disregard to the quality of education going forward, or in accord with our neighboring town in this matter at all. This is just due diligence, I think, in any topic or subject, even if it wasn't education and you just throw it somewhere else. You want to do your due diligence with every topic that is in front of you. So, thank you.
So many of the world's problems and challenges have been solved using the scientific method. And the first step in that is asking a question. And nowhere in this RFP is there a question that's being asked that we're trying to solve. It's 3 approaches: asking for data, feasibility studies, but nowhere does it say, what's the question? I'd suggest we pose a question like, how do we continue to fund our, high-performing schools, which are currently showing record participation in sports, significant accomplishments with our advanced placement students, and continue to do that. I think we'll get very different results from this study based on what this RFP says. And so I think we need to guide it better as far as what we're looking for. We need to ask a question. What are we trying to get, and how are we going to fund it, are the basic questions. So I think once those questions are asked, you do basic research. And I don't believe you need to get at this granular level of study to get the answers. I think after you ask a question, the next step is to form a hypothesis. Come up with what you think, based on experience, is an outcome. And then you do your study, you do your data to either prove or disprove that hypothesis. And I think going to this extent right out of the box is, I think, not a wise use of significant taxpayer dollars, when you can first take a step and maybe use that step to guide you further down the road. I think that 20 pages, 2 pages each for deregionalizing, 2 pages for taxing district, 2 sentences related to the feasibility study for changing the current framework. I think the priorities are wrong. And I think we need to, before we put this RFP out, I think it needs to be significantly looked at, because if it's not, we'll get an answer, we'll get data based on what this RFP says. So I think, we got to be very careful about how big of a step we take. I think some of the questions that need to be answered are very basic. And I think maybe it's, again, doing some basic blunt pencil number crunching, we might be able to get a sense of how to pare this down. So instead of costing the taxpayers $100,000, maybe it'll cost 40 or 30. So I think we got to be very careful on how quickly we move forward with RFP. And I understand that some need all of the data to make the decision, but knowledge, the knowledge of reality starts from experience. And I think we all are knowledgeable about our school district, what we're doing well, and I think we need to use that knowledge to take a couple steps forward and not expect that a consultant is going to lead us the whole way. I think that we need to take a couple baby steps first before you go to that extent.
Well, Councilman, I looked at the RFP, and in each one of the three, you're saying, asking a question, there's many question marks of the criteria that has to be put forth that comes before this council to answer questions that support that. I know for one, I don't want to be naive to your statement, but on a knowledge base, I don't pretend to be a CPA sitting up here and have those answers of the magnitude and importance of this topic going forward for the residents of both communities. So I kind of tend to disagree with your take on that. I think this is the right step to move forward to get answers. And maybe those answers, you could come up with those answers now, then I commend you. I would rather it come from a professional consultant that has been in the field or has done this in other states, other communities, that could give a definitive answer for the future, and maybe even more answers that we're looking for on the quality of education. You never know. They might provide even more that we don't know about our school system going forward.
Well, I don't know if we want to get into a volley back and forth, but...
No, we don't.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that in the spirit of working with the two towns, we all of us here, we all value our school department, and we understand the importance of funding good education. But at the end of the day, since we were elected, we've been having back and forth, and it comes down to money. So this is in the spirit of taking a stab at resolving that, where we can start moving forward as to what is the best approach. What are those projections long-term for the towns, and what are those costs going to be for the school budget? So in a spirit, this is all to get the towns to be working together and to grow together. And we're looking at the different options. Those tax authority options that were brought up, we don't know if that's going to work or not, and how that backs into a town budget. It may or may not work. So we need somebody professional to take a look at that. And as far as the deregionalization, personally, I'm not for that. I think we have great school systems. I want to see the two towns work together and try to fund them correctly, but also get the best education for the lowest costs. So we want to take a look at all things budget related. So again, this is a start. I haven't read it, so we got to look through it, right, Chairman? I mean, and it's going to be a lot of tweaks and revisions, and nothing's cut in stone at this point.
Yeah.
I'm smiling. Yeah,
Sure.
Mike,
No. Obviously, you just got it tonight. I wish I could have provided it sooner, but as you can see, it's pretty involved. Just in terms of the overall RFP, I began with a basic RFP, which has all the bells and whistles that you need to have in an RFP. The scope of services obviously begins on page 13, and that's when we get into the specifics. I tried to include lots of questions in those specifics. I think Ed mentioned all the question marks that are in there, but the intent is not for you, as the chairman mentioned, you're not going to vote on this now. Take the opportunity between 2 and 4 in the morning, read this, and send me your comments, send me your feedback on this. And also, I think, as the chairman also mentioned, we need to share that. I wanted to get it to you first, obviously. We need to share it with Warren, get comments from them. It's just the beginning of the process.
Yeah, this
anything can be
this is a
improved.
draft, and there's nothing wrong with it. And honestly, I'm not afraid of the facts. I'm not afraid of getting the information. I think that the last time this was done was 25 years ago, when the schools regionalized. There's nothing wrong with looking at this, and I think it could make a clear push for a particular one or two options and finally take off some. And I think that's a wonderful next step with this. You mentioned the scientific approach, and I'm laughing because I think that's a great way to look at this. But if you're if you're in economics professors look at things and they say, well, this is how you do it, this is how people will approach it, and this is the logical way to go to the next step. But people don't actually work like that. And I think there's a lot of emotion in all of this, and that's the reality to it. But at the end of the day, this gives us information, and the scope is wonderfully in our control. This was a first attempt, and I say thank you, Mike, because this was an excellent first step here. But it's ours to tweak. It's ours to adjust. It's ours to mold and get the information that we're looking for.
Just to really quickly, if it seemed compatible to my colleague, I respected your opinion, Councilman Tiska, but the chairman says, I think everyone knows in this community, I get some emotional statements on my rebuttals, so I didn't mean any disrespect or compatible exchange. So, welcome.
None taken, thank you.
Good evening, Joseph D. Pasquale, Council President from Warren. I would like to point out the obvious. We did meet a few months ago, and we reached out and met again individually, and we were able to come up with a cooperative approach on keeping progress moving forward. And I appreciate the invitation for that, and I appreciate this step because someone needed to do what we're doing. I also will booster Mr. Tiska's sentiments that he has his feelings upon seeing this evening. We hope to participate as well in the crafting, and let us point out that it will not be a failure if one town decides one part of this may serve their best interest, but not as a mutual, cooperative interest in that part. Or we may come up with a package that both towns agree on. Is that clear?
Well, they're very clear to me because I think I mentioned at another meeting, maybe at the workshop, that regardless, these are the issues that have come before us, and these are what we want information on. So I, for one, as a council member here, do not want to see us in the attempt to work collaboratively or save money on the scope of the study to change any of these pieces because the towns can't agree on all three. So I'm just my comment about whoever is going to negotiate this going forward. So
we do. This council does.
Right. So
along with your council.
And what I'm trying to stress is the cooperative aspect, the cooperative nature, the cooperative success of our students and our school system. Because I feel that if we work together constructively, we will be able to come up with a solution. But of course, I also point out that if the two bodies can't agree on everything, I don't think that should be a reason for the two towns not to allow one to move forward. As I've stated in the past,
I believe we're moving forward one way or the other.
I appreciate, Mary, the opportunity to speak, and if you'd like to continue, go ahead.
No, go right ahead. But I mean, you're throwing out a question, and I'm just responding.
I thought I was throwing out the spirit of cooperation and continuing with that. I really appreciate this first step, and I really look forward to the productivity that will come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I neglected to add a nice little piece here, which is Representative Marshall has had some conversations on behalf of both communities and has reached out to a multitude of sources at the state with the potential of having some, most, or all of the cost of this study borne by the state as opposed to the towns directly. So that is also on the table. So there may be this may be a no direct cost to the towns.
It'd be amazing.
So,
well, with all due
That'd be
respect,
awesome.
I mean, our legislative delegation should be working, and this problem could be solved with legislation and not even, have all this study going on. So, I mean, that's why when you make a reference, there's only a few sentences. Yeah, because that's the obvious solution. But it's not it's not feasible for us to continue in that path with the finances the way they are right now. So, I mean, we have to look at all options. So, I mean, I think that, well, it's great to not have to pay for a study. I think that the best efforts would be to figure out how we're going to address the funding formula issue, and that's what our legislators should be working on, to be quite honest with you.
It's a great point, Mary. I absolutely agree with you.
So, it's absolutely. As you do that, our next step here will be to forward the draft RFP to our colleagues in Warren and for them to review and take a look at it and offer their own thoughts on it. Sir, welcome.
Great. Yeah, Bart Ferris, 142 High Street.
Welcome.
So thank you. We have two kids in the school system right now. Our daughter's at the middle school, 7th grade, and my son is a junior at the high school. So I currently work in IT, managing consultants. I used to be working for KPMG, doing studies very similar to what you're talking about.
Okay.
So what Andy said resonated with me, because when you put things into a RFP and you start down that path, you can actually guide where that study goes, and you can drive a certain direction, even though you're gathering all the facts. And I really like the idea of identifying a question. What are we really trying to solve here? And I was thinking about this, you guys were talking, I'm going, it reminded me of the whole 38 studio thing, where we're 38.
No, I heard you, and I said, goodness, no.
Yeah. Well, if you sit there, right, we're all sitting around, you guys probably did the same thing. You heard about it as it was going through the process for approval. And you're going, I don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out this isn't going to work, right? We're not the right state to be funding this for $75 million, right? I mean, this is just, we don't have any expertise here. We don't have, okay? I kind of feel like that about when we talk about regionalization, deregionalization. Look, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out we're better together, right? I mean, we're going to have more, we're going to have funds. It's a better system. Personally, I wouldn't waste my time there. I would start to figure out, or at least think about, right, how do we fund it, which I think has come up. How do we fund this? How do we find our money? How do we solve those problems? Not about should we separate these two things, because to me, that's an extra cost and a losing proposition. It doesn't, like I said, that's why I was thinking, if we identify what are we really trying to solve here? Are we trying to, fund better school systems for our kids? How are we going to get there, right? Versus spending time, because I can just see a consultant going down this path, and you can make this thing look any way you want to make it look, even though you're gathering all the facts. So that would be my just one word of advice, you guys go down this path.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Well put. So what we need from here is, I would say, a motion to continue, and we can forward, as I said, this draft RFP to the town of Warren. Does that sound appropriate to my colleagues?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Do we continue to a date certain, or?
No, not.
Next year?
I think not a date certain at this moment.
Okay, so then we should maybe just forward it.
Okay, then we will just. Can we amend?
I'll
that?
amend my motion to just forward it.
To forward it, because we don't have a specific date that we want to do this until there's some review.
So it won't be the next meeting because it's only 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be enough for Warren
It'll
and
come
their
back when it's ready to
solicitor.
come back.
Yeah.
Warren's next meeting after talking with the president is on the 14th of November, so it wouldn't be reviewed or at least talked about until then. So.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, the next item is item I-4. This is a request for executive session, and we will take that up at the conclusion of the public agenda. The next 3 items are bids. The first is item J1, bid number 862-2. This is for the backup power supply for 3 remote pumping stations. You have 1 bid received from Wayne Electric of the town of Bristol. The bid amount is $103,700.
Is this, do we go back out to bid for another one, or how long? Only
we have
one,
the capability
Only
of
one?
negotiating because it is one respondent.
Yeah,
So we have the capability.
Okay.
Could you speak? Is this in keeping with what were we? Is this in the zone that we were considering? Okay.
Okay.
And this is just additional, I know you have been fixing up the pumping stations. I know in the past, coming through this council, our pumping stations have been
the
maintenance and whatnot.
The rehabilitation to those that you're speaking of were the larger ones that have generators on site. These, we have 6 small remote stations that do not have generators at all. And in the past, we've brought our portable generators to those sites, and in those times of need, it sucks up a lot of time. This is a hazard mitigation where the feds are going to supply us with 112,000, and our portion is 37,000. This actually came a little lower than what we were expecting.
Very good.
It would be nice if it was 112 million. Then we could have a lot of drainage projects and everything done.
I think it's important to know that these are commercial grade generators, water cooled. That's why they're a little pricey.
Okay. So we need a motion to refer, if that's what the motion is? Yes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item J2. This is bid number 867. This is for installation of new copper gutters and repair of the copper cornice at the Wally School. You have 3 bids provided. The first is from Apollo Roofing and Sheet Metal, LLC of Providence, in the amount of $175,000. The second from Cadero's Construction Incorporated of Bristol in the amount of $99,000. And the third from Crocker Architectural Sheet Metal Incorporated of North Oxford, Massachusetts, in the amount of $126,000.
Motion to forward this to town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And lastly, we have bid number 868. This is for the electricity supply purchase. You have 2 bids received. It's item J3. The first is from Direct Energy Business of Meriden, Connecticut. The first year is 7.392 cents per kilowatt hour. Years 2 and 3, 7.091 cents per kilowatt hour. The second bid is from Frontline Power Systems of Bristol. Year 1 is 7.498 cents per kilowatt hour. Year 2, 7.492 cents per kilowatt hour. And year 3, 3.02 cents per kilowatt hour.
So, Julie, our treasurer, was kind enough to make that English for us, and that English translates into some wonderful savings. $112,000 approximately, depending on which way we go, for the first year, and $125,000 for the second. Wonderful savings to the town, just
That's
from some.
huge.
Yeah.
Can I just,
So same electricity, same power, same lights, less expensive. So.
Can I just ask a question about this? Not about this per se, so you can either take the vote, but I want to ask...
So how about if we get a motion and
Okay.
a second, and then we'll have discussion?
Okay.
To refer this to the administrator?
So
Motion
moved.
to refer this to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
And a second for discussion.
Well, this is so ironic, because this morning I was at a meeting unrelated to this topic, and the subject of solar came up, and the chairman of the group, and it was on workforce issues, it wasn't to do with these topics, just started talking to a couple of us about Massachusetts and several towns that have done this, and then made these, like they've done on behalf of their residents. And I can find out more about this, but it was, I forget what they called it. It was like
Is it a community solar farm?
There's a different name to it. He kept referring to the word, but I wasn't taking notes. I mean, it was just, as I said, it was like sort of off, like, before the whole thing, everybody left. And I can definitely find out about it, but it was interesting. He was talking about how, I think it's all of southeastern Mass, like Swansea, Seekonk. I mean, we're all involved, and people could access that. And I wasn't sure if it was similar to some of the initiatives that are ad hoc, kind of through the lieutenant governor promotes. But I'll try to find out, and maybe we could see if that's something we might want to look at as well. Because here we have this, and he was talking about what a great deal that they get for the kilowatt hour in his community.
I bet Paul Raduca could answer that for us.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, that's is community solar,
Okay.
and what they in the state of Massachusetts and now Rhode Island allows is for larger arrays to be installed. Then that energy can actually be sold to residents and businesses in the community. and that has actually been rolling out in Rhode Island. And one thing with the RFP on your solar project, and I'm not sure how you're looking at this contract, but the contract, if you're signing it for 3 years for energy, would actually interfere with the solar project because they're looking at signing a contract with you to sell the energy. So they may be mutually exclusive depending on how it's structured.
Yeah, we didn't go that far, so we...
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
You
That
know,
was
which
considered.
may allow, one of the things in that RFP that didn't allow was that you could install that solar onto the landfill instead of actually bringing it to the town. Because you have this contract, you could actually send it to the community and actually have the town residents take a break on it, because you guys use a lot more electricity, so you're buying at a cheaper rate. While people like myself, well, I have solar in my house, so it doesn't matter, but most people are buying energy on a residential level, which is at a higher price. So it actually works better for the developer, which then in turn allows you guys to get a higher lease rate. Versus if they're selling, they would have to sell the energy to you at 7.9 cents or cheaper to make it palatable for you guys, which then drives down the price of what they would want to lease it for.
So do you, so does, under Rhode Island law, are we able to do that for consumers, I mean, for residents?
Yeah. I helped work on
Something
the
to
legislation
consider.
for that.
So the Massachusetts
Closely.
plan, it may be what you just said, I'm sure it is, because you know more than I do, but he used a different word, and he kept using it many times, but...
Net metering, was it a term of net metering?
No, it wasn't net metering, it was,
'cause it's
I'll
a
find out,
form of it, yeah.
I'll find out. I know I won't remember it, because I wasn't really familiar with it, but...
Yeah, Rhode Island does allow it. The disadvantage Rhode Island has, it's only for residents. You could also what's referred to as virtual net metering, and then community solar is actually a part of that. To residents, to governmental agencies, universities like Roger Williams and there, but you can't do it to businesses, which is something they do need to correct on that. Massachusetts does allow it to go to businesses, so some of the community solar does go to business to get anchors, and then 50% has to go to business. No more than 50% can go to businesses. The other remaining has to go to residents on there, and so that's where that program is working, but Rhode Island does provide for that.
But they do
Thank
it
you.
as a collaborative, correct? They do it like multiple communities, it's not just
Yeah, some
one
of them, yeah.
community, right? They do it as...
It could be wheeled anywhere within the load,
Okay.
within the load zone.
I'll email the person and I'll just find
Yeah.
out about
Thank
that.
you, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second, and a second to refer the administrative act to the best interest of the town. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the periodic report from the Bristol County Water Authority provided by the Barrington Director, Alan Clipper.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next, we have individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
So I always have a problem saying her name. But I can say Lottie, but the last name just never comes off my tongue here. Colarusso, that's how you say it. Lottie just turned 100. The administrator and I represented the town, and all of you at a wonderful birthday party. It was actually a party before the party. She's actually going to Federal Hill with her family to have dinner. So, and I think that was wonderful. But spectacular, 100 years. We were doing some of the math there and considering 100 years ago was 1917, right? And what was there? There was no cars. There was cars, but not very many of them. I mean, how long was the back road until it was Medicom, right? My grandfather died when he was 93, and he truly did not believe we actually landed on the moon. But Lottie did, and I'll tell you what, I was impressed. And if you're looking to emulate anybody, emulate her. She was, and surrounded by a lot of people, and I guess her family's got a lot to look forward to too. So
Any secrets to longevity?
she said she eats vegetables every day, walks 3 miles a day, and I'm out after that. So I can't. Yeah. So I'm not going to make it to 100, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately.
Wow, 3
but
miles a day, wow. Good for her.
I thought.
Add the glass of wine every day.
She asked me not to. So. No, I'm kidding. She didn't say that. So I just wanted to leave with that. So congratulations. Happy 100th birthday. I thought that was wonderful. We also, some of us attended the Bristol Sports Man of the Year, which was just wonderful. Archie was the Man of the Year, and that's just a wonderful event, and it brings to our attention again and again how many wonderful groups we have in town, what wonderful heritage, and I keep saying wonderful, and I mean it, the heritage that we have in town. Obviously Portuguese here, but there's so many. And this Club is a great representation of that. It's wonderful people who give back to the community. And this gentleman, Archie, has done that like other men of the year, but Archie's done it without any request for any recognition. And that, in my opinion, I used to work for a family who said, pick up trash when nobody can see you do it. I think that's the most noble, is that you're not doing it for anybody else or yourself, and I thought it was well-deserved. So on that, I will say goodnight.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, Lou, I was wondering if my colleagues don't mind, I'd like to have the LED for the municipal buildings on the next council agenda. That would be the November 8th. I know we were moving forward with that. I just wanted to know where we stood on that. Just a quick update, nothing major. Just wanted to wish everybody a Halloween, happy Halloween. Hope keep it safe and fun. Thank you. You have a good night.
Mr. Tiska.
So I'll use the opportunity for a community service announcement. So, 1 second. On Saturday, Mount Hope Farm is having the Farm Fest from 10 to 2. There'll be live music, hay wagon rides, children's games, historical reenactments, food, farm animals, and lots of fun. So please come.
Will the reenactment be better than that? Yeah.
I hope so.
Okay.
No, that might be worth the reason to go. If he's going to be like they're doing
And not
that.
something a little lighter. I know we had
that would
some
be
heavy
neat.
conversation, but this is a good weekend ahead of us.
Yes. What's that? Ms. Perella.
Okay, I was just trying to check a date. So I wanted to just mention, as Tim had mentioned, that wish everyone a happy and safe Halloween. The Halloween Walkabout in downtown Bristol will be Sunday afternoon. I believe it's at 1. Is it 1 to 3, I believe? Yeah. So that's always a really popular event for people. If you've never been to it, it's definitely worth a walk downtown or a drive-by and see the kids all out, and it's very popular, so I hope the weather will be good. And I know we're only going 2 weeks for this meeting, so we're going to meet on the 8th then, right, Lou?
Yes.
Okay, because then we don't need to mention Veterans Day, because it'll be the ribbon cutting, I think. Okay, so that's all I was trying to check. Thank you very much. That's it.
And Mr. Stewart.
Last Wednesday evening, the East Bay Chamber honored many people. I just want to say again, congratulations to the Citizens of the Year, our very own Joe and Betty Brito. I've done very much over the years in many capacities of giving back to the community, well-deserved. Our colleagues from Warren were here, Water Roa, who made a substantial investment in Warren, but it's also in our community too, because when other businesses in your surrounding areas make that type of commitment and investment, it just adds to all the surrounding areas on a multitude of levels, whether we were just talking about education or training or people moving into certain areas. The emerging leader, which we have to, it's a brand new award that we found out. So we're very proud of our own Bristolian, Brian Barrett, who was the emerging leader for the Chamber. And the outstanding member was, believe it or not, another Bristolian who has well, he was originally from Warren, but he's in Bristol now with his business, Mr. Joseph Hozempa. So congratulations to all of them. And on that same night, I know me and Steve were trying to, not break the law, Chief, but try to make a lot of events, is we actually honored a firefighter of the year, and that was from Bristol, William Van Vost from the Defiance, out of the Rhode Island Firemen's Association for the state.
Nice.
So congratulations to him. We have the Walkabout, so just want to make sure everybody is conscientious of your traffic patterns. There's going to be a lot of children not only here in town, but children that actually come into Bristol for this event. It's always a great success. And I just want to thank Mike Davis, Archie Martins, everybody who came out tonight, and everybody tuning in at home. Thank you.
I neglected to, I believe we did not recognize Bill Josephs.
Oh, right.
Right,
that,
Bill
right,
Josephs
right,
is
right,
a
since the last
Bristolian
meeting,
who,
right.
if you drive in Warren, on the right-hand side, it was the East Bay Collaborative?
Right,
Education Collaborative for 20 years, and now it's the Bill Josephs. school, which is just phenomenal. He put in an immense amount of time there, and it is what it is today because of him, and he would tell you it's because of a lot of other people, but I'm sure it is. But primarily, he did a phenomenal job, and he deserves to be recognized, a proud Bristolian. Thank you.
And I also forgot a reminder. This week's East Bay Restaurant Week. So if you want to try some restaurants, please patronize our restaurants throughout the community. They have special deals, so this is a good week to do it, along with the many events with Councilman Tisker. Are you doing the rides again?
I'm actually driving the tractor.
All right, beautiful.
With a tie? No.
He's driving the tractor.
He is actually driving
I know, should we get on it or not? Like,
No,
I mean,
no.
we don't agree? What happened? No?
Town Administrator, agenda items.
Thank you. I'd like to start first with some upcoming events at the police department. Chief, if you would.
Good evening. This Saturday, October 28th, between 10 and 2 p.m. is the DEA drug take-back. So anyone that has any prescription drugs that are expired or not in use, you can drop them off at the station. There'll be an officer there to collect them from you. It's a very successful event. Last year, we took in approximately 178 pounds of drugs that were hanging around the house, and as we know, if there's no use for them, we should take them and dispose of them. It does no good to have those in someone's house where accidentally they could be taken or end up in some child's hands. So we'll be taking those at between 10 and 2 at the Bristol Police Department. Also, at the same time, anyone that has a firearm that is laying around the house that no one uses, we'll also take that for destruction purposes only. So if anyone has a firearm at home belonging to Grandpa, Uncle John, whoever it may be, feel free to bring it to the station, leave it in your vehicle. We'll come out, we'll take it, and we'll dispose of it for you at no cost and no questions. Okay? Second, we have a Citizens Police Academy, as we have had every year. Starting up, first day will be November 7th. We're taking applications until the 1st of November. And as I believe all the council people know, it's a 10-week program. It's just a quick snapshot of what the police department does for the community, gives the citizens that enroll in it a snapshot of the inside of the police department, a ride-along. It's a 2-hour per week, every Tuesday from 7 to 9. And I can tell you, over the last 15-plus years, we've received nothing but positive feedback. So it's a program that we want to continue from any age, from a 14-year-old to a 75-year-old gentleman or a female. We accept all. You come in, you have a good time. We teach you about what happens behind the walls of the Bristol Police Department. That being said, the only thing I have is, as most of you mentioned, Halloween's right around the corner. As everyone knows, we ask that we use some caution when we're driving down these streets during that day. We will be out in force during the day and at night. For anyone that's not willing to be out there cooperating and thinks they have a trick, we may have a treat that's not something that they're expecting. But if anyone's going to cause a problem, I assure you we're going to be there to address it. But again, I ask that if we travel the streets here in town, that we be very careful for the youth that'll be walking around. And parents, please have them in illuminated clothes or at least a flashlight. But I assure you there'll be some very high visibility with the police department, to include myself. I will be out there. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with some less than positive news. I have the Transportation Improvement Program from DOT with me for reference, but during the last month or so, I have been keeping in touch with DOT, with our liaison there. For public knowledge, the Metacom intersections, it's Metacom at Tupelo, Metacom at Chestnut, Metacom at Anawamsket, that's due to start in 2018. So that's what we're being told now. So it's after the first of the year, 2018. As far as I know, it hasn't been advertised yet, but they're telling us next year. After that, 5 years from now, 2022 is Route 114, Hope Street from Washington to the Warren line. That's paving and sidewalk reconstruction. A year after that, so 2023, 6 years from now, is Metacom Avenue, Town Line to Ferry Road, and that includes sidewalk improvements. So we have to do our best to hold it together, and we'll keep the pressure on. We've been working, lobbying DOT to get the trees cut on Hope Street. We're not relenting until the stumps are ground down next. They were there last week. I had given them a list of 11. They finally got to 11 of them, but there's still more work to be done. We'll stay on that. We acknowledged quite a few residents over the last few weeks that did some great things, but I want to mention one in particular. Al Salvaggio passed away. I consider him a hero in Bristol. He's a World War II veteran, served in the Battle of Peleliu, and very seldom talked about it. It's a battle where 2,000 Marines and soldiers perished there. But the thing why I say he's a hero, he worked every day. He provided and protected his family, and he never complained. So I think he's remarkable, and he'll be missed. 91 years old. Positive note, the traffic light on State Street is done, and it's on guard there, under budget. I think it was a little over $9,000, so that's good news. And I think that's all we have. Happy Halloween, and good night.
Thank you.
Motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 42465A5 regarding the acquisition of open space.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.